This Saturday is UFC Vegas 100, Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates, and this is going to be my full card predictions. What better way to celebrate a prestigious event like UFC Vegas 100 than having Neil Magny headline a card? I can't wait, and they stacked the card from top to bottom. It's incredible. I'm kidding. That's sarcasm. We are never leaving the Apex. It's too cheap for the UFC to have fights at the Apex. And we're having Neil Magny headline a card in 2024. The UFC's down bad. Dana White's down bad. And UFC 309 isn't much better coming up the week following. So we're going to go through my full card predictions. If you guys enjoy prediction videos, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and make sure to like this video. I'd really appreciate it. Help boost it in the algorithm. Let's get right to it. First fight of the card. We have Tresean Gore versus Antonio Trócoli. Antonio Trócoli had multiple fights canceled and rearranged, and the date got moved on him, and he ends up fighting Magomedov. And he gets brutalized in the fight. He looks like shit in the fight. He looked weak. The grappling looked horrible, and Bullet doesn't even have great defensive grappling. He eventually gets finished. I don't know how much to read into that fight because it was changed so many times, and the date was changed, and he was in training camp, and then next thing you know, it's getting switched. He was supposed to fight, I think, the week before against Ikram Aliskerov. Then Aliskerov got moved to Abu Dhabi against Whitaker, so then Trócoli got moved to Abu Dhabi to fight Bullet Magomedov instead of... It was just a whole debacle. Anyway, he didn't look great, but how much do we take away from that? But then you look at his resume. Prior to that, he's got one win 3 years ago. Then before that, his last fight was on Contender Series 5 years, 3 months ago. And I think he won that fight, but then it got overturned. And then before that, so 2 wins ago is 6 years ago, and he fought a guy who was 2-6. He looks weak. The striking doesn't look good. He relies on his grappling and his jiu-jitsu. You have Tresean Gore, who hasn't fought in a while. It's been 2 years since he snapped Josh Frem's head off, basically, with a guillotine. But before that, got KO'd by Cody Garbrandt. Before that, lost to Bryan Battle via decision. I feel like a lot of people were expecting him to win that fight, but Bryan Battle exceeded expectations, and now we know why. He's actually better than we thought he was. I'm going to go Tresean Gore. I think he has the wrestling to stop the grappling of Antonio Trócoli. I think he has good power in his hands. And I just think Trócoli's just too weak and soft and relies on his jiu-jitsu so much. And, you know, could he get Gore down and beat him up and maybe finish him? I mean, it happened to him against Cody Garbrandt, but Garbrandt hurt him bad and then jumped on top, full mounted him and finished him. I don't think Trócoli has that type of power, and he's not even particularly fast. Now, I don't know. We could see a totally different Trócoli in this fight just because of the kind of the circumstances surrounding his fight against Bullet, which I feel bad for him. But I'm going to go Tresean Gore. I'm going to pick Tresean Gore to KO him in the first round. Next fight on the card, we have Gaston Bolaños, I think actually how you pronounce it, versus Cortavius Romious. I don't know. I don't remember how to pronounce the name. Listen, Bolaños actually didn't look bad 2 fights ago. I believe it was his UFC debut. Yeah, he came from Bellator. Aaron Phillips' fight, he didn't look particularly bad. He won that fight, but he's getting out grappled by Aaron Phillips. His striking looked decent, but again, it's against Aaron Phillips. You have Cortavius in his last fight was on Dana White's Contender Series. Striking looked decent, grappling looked decent, fight IQ looked decent. The guy was trying to like pull guard and stuff. And even when he hurt him, he'd follow him down to do some damage, then he'd back out just to avoid any submission attempt. When the dude would attempt takedowns on him, he'd reverse, end up on top. He's fast. He has good power. He has good defensive and offensive wrestling. And Bolaños, I don't trust him. I mean, he got KO'd by Marcus McGee, but Marcus McGee's really solid. I could see a scenario where Bolaños wins, but I have to go Romious. I'm trying to remember how to pronounce his name. I watched some fight tape on him, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. I'm going to go Cortavius to get it done. I think Bolaños is better than a lot of people probably expect, but I see Cortavius just to be a little bit more well-rounded, has good hands, has good power, and I think Bolaños just has a really good right hand. He has some grappling deficiencies that I think Cortavius can exploit. Bolaños has some good get-up ability, but he's getting taken down, and it's not like guys struggle to take him down. So even if Cortavius is getting outstruck on the feet, I could see him getting a takedown, getting some control time, beating him up, and winning the fight. I'm going to go Cortavius to win via decision. I'm going to say a 30-27 decision. I don't think he's going to get Bolaños out of there. I don't think he has the power of someone like Marcus McGee, but I see him winning this fight pretty handedly. Next fight on the card, we have Melissa Mullins versus Klaudia Syguła. I could barely find any tape on Klaudia Syguła. When I did, she had some okay grappling and some decent striking. Her striking was definitely better than her grappling. She's 6-1. She's on a win streak. She's not fighting the best opposition. 6-9, 1-0, 5-2, 0-1. But Melissa Mullins is kind of garbage. Her last fight, she lost to Nora Cornoli, or Cornol, I think is actually how you pronounce it. She was doing okay, then got kneed to the body and then head kicked repeatedly. Before that, she beat Irina Alexeyeva, which is a decent win. I mean, it's not great. Before that, she beat Daria Zalesniakova outside the UFC. She was losing that fight, and Zalesniakova got gassed, and then she came back and won. Melissa Mullins is just going to try to grapple nonstop. Her striking is horrific. It's absolutely terrible. I swear somebody on the street could outstrike her. So even though I haven't seen enough from Syguła, I'm going to pick her to get it done. And, you know, she has quite a few finishes. Her last few fights ended via KO. Her last 2 fights ended via KO. Mullins is really garbage. And one thing I did notice watching some fight tape of Syguła, she has some good knees in the clinch. So I'm going to say Syguła gets it done. I'm going to say second round TKO. In the Cornol fight, she got kneed to the body. That's what ended up being the fight finishing kind of, you know, where the fight finish really began, hurting her to the body with a knee. So I'm going to pick Klaudia Syguła. I'm going to say second round TKO. Knees her to the body, then touches her up on the feet. Maybe like a standing TKO finish where she just quits on the feet and Syguła finishes her in the second round. Next fight on the card, we have Cody Stamann versus Damon Blackshear. I think Damon Blackshear is criminally underrated. I actually think he's really good. He lost to Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson's really solid. Lost to Mario Batista. Look how good Mario Batista is. I know people don't want to admit it. He beat Jose Aldo. Before that, submitted Jose Johnson via twister. Before that, beat Luana Lacerda. Not a great win. Before that, had a close fight with Farid Basharat. Cody Stamann's coming off 2 losses to Taylor Lapulas, Douglas Silva de Andrade. And, you know, while they aren't straight up scrubs, I just think Stamann's striking isn't that good. He's like kind of a bum version of Chad Mendes back in the day. He has good grappling, really just primarily wrestling, doesn't have great jiu-jitsu, and has decent power in his hands, doesn't mix in a whole lot of kicks. And I think Damon Blackshear is improving with every fight. He's 30 years old. He's entering his prime. Cody Stamann has been the same for literally years. And I think that Blackshear has the better jiu-jitsu. So if it does end up grappling, you know, if they end up in some grappling sequences, I think Damon Blackshear can get the better of him. You know, end up scrambling, ending up on top for a little bit, gets the back. And I think Cody Stamann could end up, you know, in a bad position on the ground where Damon Blackshear has his back and isn't able to get up. And I also think Stamann's kind of a one-trick pony on the feet, just looks to throw power shots. Again, kind of a bum Chad Mendes. He's 35 years old. He's lost 3 out of his last 5. You know, it's not the worst opposition. You know, Taylor Lapulas I actually think is a decent prospect. Douglas Silva de Andrade is old but still decent. His last few wins, Luan Lacerda and Eddie Wineland. And I know Damon Blackshear's last 2 wins, one of them is Luan Lacerda as well. And then Jose Johnson, which aren't the best wins. I just think Damon Blackshear, I'll say he's a little bit better. You know, with the jiu-jitsu, with his jiu-jitsu ability and his grappling ability. His striking is improving. And I think Stamann is just kind of predictable and getting older and not improving and slowing down a bit. And I just think Damon Blackshear is going to win. I'm going to pick Damon Blackshear via decision. Next fight on the card. This is a tough fight to pick. Matthew Semelsberger versus Charles Radtke. Who do I pick in this fight? Matthew Semelsberger has the lowest fight IQ I've ever seen in my entire life. And that's what makes this fight hard to pick. Because he's lost 4 out of his last 5, but looked decent against Preston Parsons. Could have even arguably potentially won that fight. Got KO'd by Udos Medic, but had some moments in that fight. Lost a split decision to Jeremiah Wells. Could have finished him multiple times in that fight, but his fight IQ failed him. His last win was against Jake Matthews, who was on like riding high at that point. You know, where Jake Matthews had that world beater performance against, I believe it was Andre Fialho, and then people were hyping up Jake Matthews, and then Matthew Semelsberger comes and kind of derails the hype train there. And then before that, lost to Alex Moreno. Charles Radtke lost to Carlos Prates in his last fight, got kneed to the body and TKO. Before that, beat Gilbert Urbina. I did not expect him to win that fight. Before that, he beat Mike Mathetha. Looked like absolutely garbage in that fight. This is a toss-up fight. Truly, I think most people are going to pick Charles Radtke. I think it could go either way. Matthew Semelsberger has some good power in his hands. He has some decent grappling. You know, honestly, it's crazy to say this. He could have literally won all his recent fights. I think outside of the Alex Moreno fight. I don't remember that one that well, and I didn't rewatch that in the lead up to this prediction video. but could have won a lot. Could have won the Preston Parsons fight. Could have won the Medic fight before he got finished. Could have won the Jeremiah Wells fight if he didn't, make poor decision making. So look, I'm not going to pick a guy with super low fight IQ. He is 31, where Radtke's 34. And, to be honest, that performance from Charles Radtke against Mike Mathetha, a.k.a. Blood Diamond, but he doesn't deserve that name anymore. He looked horrific. But I'm going to go Charles Radtke. He has decent power. The shot that he landed on Gilbert Urbina, that nice tight left hook, was filthy. And Matthew Semelsberger, super low fight IQ. He's going to, even if he starts to win, he's going to fumble the bag somehow, make some mistake. I'm going to pick Radtke to get it done because Matthew Semelsberger, it's in a close round. It's 1-1 heading to third. Matthew Semelsberger's on top, but somehow he goes for a heel hook and ends up on bottom, Cyril Gane style, 5th round against Francis Ngannou. Some way, somehow, Matthew Semelsberger, low fight IQ, is going to come back to haunt him in this fight. I'm going to pick Charles Radtke to get it done, like a 29-28 decision win. Next fight on the card, we have Mansour Abdul-Malik versus Dusko Todorović. I think this is one of those matchups where the UFC clearly wants somebody to win because Dusko Todorović, I just don't think he has the skill set to keep up with Abdul-Malik, or Malik, actually, I think it is. Malik looked nasty on Dana White's Contender Series, absolutely brutalized the guy Wes Schultz. I don't know how good that guy truly is. Before that, he's in LFA, getting a big KO win there, but not fighting the best opposition. But he looks good. Good power in his hands, good grappling, good top control. He's shown a wide variety of skills on Dana White's Contender Series. And then you have Todorović, who's been out for 2 years, suffered a knee injury against Christian Leroy Duncan. Before that, beat Jordan Wright, who's an absolute scrub. Before that, lost Chidi Njokuani. Before that, beat Maki Patolo. Before that, lost to Gregory Rodriguez. Todorović is going to try to grapple in this fight, but I think Malik is just going to be stronger, and I think his striking is way better, and his powers is just going to overwhelm Todorović. So I see Abdul-Malik going out there and getting a finish. I think Todorović, coming in rusty, long layoff, coming back from an injury that absolutely destroyed by Christian Leroy Duncan in the last fight. His knee got destroyed at least. I don't see how he wins this fight. 27 years old for Malik, 6'2", so a little bit of a height advantage, and then a 6-inch reach advantage for Malik. And Malik is super explosive on the feet. Good kicks, good punches, nasty finishing ability. I think all 6 of his wins are via finish. I think 5 of them are via KO. 1 of them are via submission. So I think Todorović is really going to come out, try to grapple, not have a whole lot of success. He's going to get sprawled on. And I think once Malik really starts being comfortable stuffing the takedowns, I really think he's going to open up on the feet and KO Todorović. I'm going to pick Mansour Abdul-Malik via late first round KO. I'm going to say head kick KO. Screw it. I think he's going to head kick KO him late first round. Next fight on the card, we have the featured prelim, Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos versus Nicolas Dalby. Man, Nicolas Dalby is number 1 on my suspicion list post USADA. This guy has looked unbelievable in his last fight against Rinat Fakhretdinov. He looked unbelievable against Gabriel Bonfim. The cardio was super suspicious because he didn't look that good prior to this. He beat Muslim Salihov, he beat Warley Alves via split decision, beat Claudio Silva. He has no really great wins. He's 39 years old. And somehow, all of a sudden, he throws more volume and keeps a higher pace than Max Holloway. That's suspicious to me. Now, Zaleski, coming off a loss against Randy Brown, coming off a draw against Rinat Fakhretdinov, where Dalby lost that fight. It was a razor-close decision loss, split decision loss. I just think Zaleski dos Santos, I don't know, man. I'm just going to pick Dalby off the EPO and volume, basically. That's what I'm going to do. I think Zaleski is underrated a bit. He is 37 going on 38, but Dalby's 39. But the Dalby that I've seen in the last couple fights, the volume and pressure and pace and durability he's put out there, I just can't pick against him. There's something super suspicious about him. And I don't normally say those types of things. I genuinely believe that he looks damn near invincible. He does not get tired. He can grapple. He can strike nonstop. And it's like when he gets hit, he doesn't show any respect. Dos Santos has good power. I suspect Dalby will just walk through those shots like it's nothing. So Zaleski, I see him. He's losing to Randy Brown. I think he's going to lose to Dalby off of volume, basically. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think Zaleski is decently dynamic on the feet. He'll land some shots, but Dalby will walk through them and just throw. For every 2 shots Zaleski throws, Dalby will throw 4 shots. He'll keep putting the pressure and pace on him, and I think he'll win a decision. I'm going Nicolas Dalby via decision. Next fight on the card. First fight on the main card. We have Luana Pinheiro versus Jillian Robertson. Who do you pick in this one? I think you have to go Jillian Robertson. She's got great submission skills. Luana Pinheiro is coming off a submission loss against Angela Hill, where I think she was winning that fight and ended up getting caught in a guillotine. Before that, got finished by Amanda Hebos. Before that, beat Michelle Waterson-Gomez, who's an absolute scrub. Jillian Robertson's coming off a win over Michelle Waterson-Gomez. Beat her up pretty badly. Out-grappled her pretty badly. KO'd Polyana Viana from Mount. And before her last loss is to Tabitha Ritchie. Tabitha Ritchie's decent. Before that, submission over Piera Rodriguez. Before that, submission over Maria Agapova. I think Pinheiro's actually decent, has decent striking, but she doesn't have a great gas tank. And I think she's going to be out of her depth on the ground. I think Jillian Robertson is much better on the ground. I think Robertson can submit a lot of these girls. If she can get them to the ground, she can find a submission. So I'm going to pick Robertson to get it done. The question is really how. You know, she has a wide variety of submissions. I'm going to say she gets an armbar. I'm going to say she's going to, I could even see Robertson pulling guard. I could see her pulling guard, Pinheiro following her down. Oh, I'm going to get some top control. Boom, armbar immediately. I'm going to say Jillian Robertson, first round armbar, gets it done. First fight on the main card. Next fight on the card, we have Gerald Meerschaert versus the silhouette of Rainer de Ritter from One Championship. Former One Championship champion. And actually a quality fighter. I know Gerald Meerschaert's kind of like a trap fight for everyone. It just seems like somehow he gets it done. He's coming off a win over Edmund Shabazian, coming off a win over Brian Barberina, submitting both of them, which is crazy. He's old as hell. He's 36 going on 37, but in MMA years, he's super old. He's like 45. Lost to Andrzej Petrosky, lost to Joe Pyfer, not a horrible loss to have, beat Bruno Silva. De Ritter is coming off one win at UAE Warriors. Before that, 2 losses against Antoni Malikin. And I'll tell you this right now. I watched the fights back against Anatoly Malikin. And I've watched a decent amount of his fights in One Championship. Look, he kind of gives me those Dalby vibes. He walks through everything. He never gets hurt. He never gets tired. He's hard to take down. And it's just like, okay, something suspicious. Look, the way I kind of grade De Ritter is he looks like a guy who's the only guy in One Championship who's not on PEDs. And now he's coming to the UFC. He's fighting Gerald Meerschaert, who's not an easy fight by any means. But De Ritter has really good jiu-jitsu skills. What does Gerald Meerschaert do? He finds a way to kind of get you to fade. He gets his ass beat for like the first round. And then when you fade, he somehow finds a shot that hurts you and then subs you. It seems like Gerald Meerschaert, every fight, is like wearing you down and finding the submission, hurting you with a shot, finding the submission. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against De Ritter. De Ritter's nasty on the ground. One of his most recent wins, inverted triangle, came out of nowhere. It was filthy. Choked the guy unconscious. I think De Ritter's better on the feet. I think Gerald Meerschaert looks like he's stuck in the mud every time I watch him fight. So I see De Ritter beating him up on the feet. I could even see De Ritter hurting him. I could see De Ritter, Gerald Meerschaert, and Gerald Meerschaert. Okay? Hurting him bad, finding a sub. But I'm going to say Gerald Meerschaert survives because somehow he always finds a way, unless it's against like a Hamzat Chimaev, unless it's against a Joe Pyfer who has nasty KO power. It seems like he's able to survive. So I'm going to pick De Ritter just to win via decision. I don't see Gerald Meerschaert winning this fight. I think De Ritter's a guy that maybe they're going to try to build up in the middleweight division. The middleweight division still seems to be like kind of rebuilding right now. And it seems like some contenders are emerging. Hamzat Chimaev just ran through Robert Whittaker. And I think this was a signing to try to, help bolster the middleweight division because it's kind of been lacking for the last couple of years. It's not horrible, but, obviously Adesanya had cleaned it out quite a bit. So I think De Ritter gets it done. I'm going to say he wins a 30-27 decision. Gerald Meerschaert just looks so slow. I don't know how he finds ways to win, but he just does. Next fight on the card, we have Ricky Turcios versus Benardo Sopaj. Listen, my entire analysis of this fight is based on one fight. And I know it sounds crazy because it's going against one of my own rules, kind of. And that's the fact that Sopaj was dominating Vinicius Oliveira before the finish. With his grappling, he eventually gets flying knee KO'd. Ricky Turcios, his one hole in his game is his defensive grappling. Now, he's not one of those guys that just lays there and accepts the position, but Sopaj has some good offensive grappling. And we've seen Raul Rosas Jr. is able to get him down and get a submission in his last fight. Before that, even against Kevin Navidad, was able to get taken down a little bit there, even though he won the fight. I think even against Ayman Zahabi, he got taken down. I'm not 100% sure. Brady Highstand got taken down. I think Benardo Sopaj is good enough on the feet. I think Turcio isn't that great on the feet. And I think the grappling advantage goes to Sopaj. I like Sopaj's grappling, offensive grappling. I think he'll be able to take him down, beat him up, control him. Turcios isn't easy to finish at all. You know, he's kind of, people like to compare him to like a bantamweight Tony Ferguson, but I don't think he's even that good. I don't think Turcios is that good. So I'm going to pick Sopaj to go out there and get it done. He doesn't have any wins in the UFC. He fought outside the UFC. He's fighting okay opposition, 11-4, 5-2. He's 24 years old. He does have a 5-inch reach disadvantage and a 3-inch reach or height disadvantage as well. But Turcios isn't some amazing striker. I think Sopaj is the crisper striker, and I think he'll definitely mix in the grappling and be able to get him down and control him. And I'm going to go Benardo Sopaj. I'm going to say via decision. Next fight on the card, we have Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Denise Gomes. Who do we pick in this one? I'm going to go Denise Gomes. Karolina Kowalkiewicz had like kind of resurgence. She won a couple fights in a row, but it's against Diana Belbita, Vanessa Demopoulos, Sylvia Gomez Suarez, Felice Herrig, all kind of scrubs. She's 39 years old, fighting a 24-year-old power puncher, Denise Gomes. I think Karolina is going to have to grapple if she wants to win this fight. When we've seen Gomes lose, it's kind of with the grappling and clinch work, like against Angela Hill. I don't think Karolina is going to be able to do that. I think Denise Gomes is going to box her up on the feet. And she's 24 years old. She's much faster. She has good power. And Karolina Kowalkiewicz, while she had a resurgence, it was against straight up scrubs. It's crazy. At one point, Kowalkiewicz was like a title contender, considered a title contender at one point. So I'm going to pick Denise Gomes to get it done. I'm going to say she KOs her. I see her being much crisper on the feet. She's going to know Kowalkiewicz is probably going to try some grappling. But Kowalkiewicz is primarily a kickboxer herself. So once the speed goes, she doesn't really have power. I think Denise Gomes is going to probably finish her, honestly. I'm going to pick Denise Gomes KO. So I'm going to pick Denise Gomes. I'm going to say second round KO over Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I just don't trust her to get a win. She lost to Yasmin Lucindo. The other girls she beat up were just not great. And I think Denise Gomes is going to go out there and literally bully her. I'm picking her to win. I'm going to say second round TKO for Denise Gomes. Next fight on the card, we have the co-main event. We have Cody Garbrandt versus Miles Johns. This is actually a tricky fight to pick. Cody Garbrandt, at one point, I was writing him off as a dead body. His last loss was against Davison Figueiredo. He did not look horrible in that fight, got submitted. Before that, KO'd Brian Kelleher. Before that, beat Trevin Jones, but didn't look good. Miles Johns looked decent in his last few fights. Beat Douglas Silva de Andrade, beat Cody Gibson. I think probably Miles Johns is going to have to grapple nonstop, and I don't think he has the jiu-jitsu. He doesn't have the jiu-jitsu. Let's be honest. He does not have the jiu-jitsu. He's one of those guys that can grapple but can't really find submissions. And so I think Cody Garbrandt's wrestling is good enough to deal with that, and I think he's going to have a massive boxing advantage. And Miles Johns doesn't have crazy power on the feet. Now, he could slump out Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt's taken so much damage over the course of his career. But I think the boxing advantage for Cody Garbrandt is going to be significant. And unless Miles Johns is just able to take him down, control him, beat him up, I don't see him winning this fight. Of course, Garbrandt has that off button on his chin, but it seems like Garbrandt will lose a couple fights, come back and win a couple fights, and then come back and lose a couple fights. I think this is one of those matchups where he wins. I mean, he's only 33. It's crazy how fast time goes by. He's only 33 years old. Former bantamweight champion, unranked guy, which is crazy. At one point, he's a champion. Now he's unranked. He's been unranked for quite a bit. I'm going to pick him to KO Miles Johns. I think his striking style, I think this is going to be one of those performances where it's like, oh, can Cody Garbrandt have a resurgence? Even though he probably never will. He'll never beat top level, guys at bantamweight. I think this will be one of the fights where you're like, oh, maybe he can. Maybe he can go back into the top 15. He had the opportunity against Figgy to get back in the top 15. He wasn't able to do it. He scrambled, gave up his back, and Figgy was able to find a submission. I don't see Miles Johns finding the submission. I don't see Miles Johns finding that big shot and getting a KO. I see Miles Johns just shooting takedown after takedown after takedown. And I think Garbrandt's good enough defensively. He can stuff those takedowns and land some good shots on the feet and chop at the legs of Miles Johns. Miles Johns is really heavy on that lead leg, shooting double legs and, having Tim Welch scratching his head. Like, I've never seen that technique before. So I'm going to say Cody Garbrandt gets it done. I'm going to say he KOs Miles Johns. I know Miles Johns hasn't been finished for a while. His last loss via finish was against John Castaneda, where he got submitted. But I think Cody Garbrandt still has decent power. And I think he's the far superior boxer to Miles Johns. So I'm going to pick Cody Garbrandt to get it done via brutal second round KO. And the Cody Garbrandt kind of, he still has like a niche cult-like following. They're going to be like, Cody's back. Cody Garbrandt is back. So I'm going to pick Cody Garbrandt second round KO. Next fight on the card, the main event. Main event. Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates. Is this really a fight we got to make a pick on? It's got to be Carlos Prates. It's just, when does he finish him? Neil Magny, look, he's used to beating up on these young whippersnappers, but Carlos Prates is 31. That doesn't get Neil Magny motivated, you know? He likes the younger fighters, okay? That's who he likes beating up on and trying to spank. And, you know, I know he beat Mike Malott, brutally exposed Mike Malott. I mean, Mike Malott embarrassed himself, ended his whole career that night, in my opinion. But Mike Malott was dominating him up until that point, and then he gassed out. I don't know if Prates is going to gas out. Then Neil Magny got destroyed by Michael Morales. Neil Magny's the ultimate top 15 gatekeeper of the welterweight division. Prates has looked unbelievable. He's training out of the Fighting Nerds. They looked unbelievable. You know, Caio Baralho, you know, Jean Silva, you know, the list goes on and on. You can name a couple other fighters from the Fighting Nerds that have just looked incredible recently. And Prates is on this long win streak. He brutally chinned Li Jingliang in his last fight. You know, finished Charles Radtke with a knee to the body. Finished Trevin Giles. All these KOs have been walk-off KOs too. And I know none of these guys have the grappling skills of Neil Magny, but I think Neil Magny's 37. He's slowing down. His striking is nowhere near as good as Carlos Prates. Could he expose Prates in the grappling? Sure, it's possible. I don't think it happens. Prates is such a slick striker. I mean, look what Ian Gary was able to do to Neil Magny. And I know people criticize Ian Gary for not finishing him. He was chopping the legs. And it almost seemed like Gary wanted to get the reps in. Like he was just punishing Neil Magny. Just punishing him over and over and over again. I think Prates is going to finish him. I think he's going to do him dirty like Michael Morales did. I think Prates is going to go out there, stuff one or two takedowns, maybe even get taken down once and work his way back to his feet. I went back and watched his Dana White's Contender Series fight against Mitchell Ramirez. He did get taken down by a double leg in that fight up against the fence. You know, it was held down for maybe 30 seconds, scrambled to the cage and made his way back to the feet. I don't think Neil Magny's grappling skills are what they used to be. And I just find it hard to believe that Neil Magny is going to go out there and just grapple him and win the fight. Could Prates gas out? It's a 5-round fight? Sure. We know Neil Magny can go 5 rounds, but I see Prates battering those legs, lighting him up on the feet, and I see Neil Magny just panicking, clinching, and panicking, shooting takedowns. And I think eventually Carlos Prates is going to catch him. I could see like Neil Magny shooting him on a desperation takedown and Prates catching him with a knee right up the middle and brutally chinning him. And I could see that even happening early. I'm going to go Carlos Prates. I'm going to say he KOs him late first round. I think Prates is just so slick on the feet. I just think he's leaps and bounds better than Neil Magny. I think Neil Magny has regressed. He's taken a lot of damage. He got finished brutally in his last fight. His confidence probably isn't what it used to be. And I think Prates is far too good on the feet and too slick on the feet for a guy like Neil Magny to go out there and expose him. And the only question mark I have is Prates' 5-round cardio. Because he's getting all these finishes. He's not even going deep into the fight. He's not exerting a lot of energy. The way he kind of flows with his striking and really throws nice straight shots, I don't see him gassing out. He's not a guy that just goes crazy and throws these wild winging shots. They're more calculated, accurate shots with kind of low energy output, even though he's landing good, damaging shots. So I'm going to pick Carlos Prates. I'm going to say first round, knee up the middle on Neil Magny as he shoots a takedown, brutally chins him, and gets the win and becomes a legit contender in the welterweight division. How can you not pick Carlos Prates in this fight? So yeah, I'm not picking Neil Magny. I don't think he gets it done. Could this fight end with Neil Magny somehow exposing him and everyone's like, Carlos Prates, fraud check? It's possible, but unlikely. I'm picking Prates, first round KO. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.